The other day I was at a large conference. I was with about 800 social investors and nonprofit executives. We were attending the Lion's Den annual meeting in Dallas. As usual, every time I am at events like this one, I'm asked the same questions. But this time it was different. And because of that, it reminded me of what happened a few years back. This was when two high-potential nonprofits began working with me during the same week. You too may have experienced this. Well, here's what happened. In a bit of an unusual situation, both charitable organizations came into my agency within 5 days of each other. As we began our situational analysis, like we always do when helping a new nonprofit, I asked the question, if we were sitting here a year from now, what would have to have happened for you to feel good about your progress with us? You may know this as the Dan Sullivan question, or heard of it in one fashion or another. Dan's program, called the Strategic Coach, is the top entrepreneurial community in America. Well, probably the world for that matter. I was in Strategic Coach for 12 years. I learned a lot about growing an organization, both from my marketing consultancy and other entities as well. In asking this question, the most frequent response that I receive is, quote, we want to expand how we help those in need. We want to grow. We want to be bigger, as well as more effective stewards of our revenues and resources, end quote. The real question being asked of them is, do you really want to grow or just say that you want to grow? That brings us back to the two groups that came into my agency the same week. Both initially said yes to this question. We said great, and went on to detail what they needed to do. This was simply what we have done time and again to grow revenue resources for several national and international nonprofits. One nonprofit that we worked with even grew from an annual budget of $5 million a year to an annual budget of $126 million. Yes, it took a period of time, but we did it. And we both made life better for those who struggle in one fashion or another around the world. In outlining the strategic steps, we spoke of setting up processes, procedures, and plans for growth. One of the two groups quickly said, yes, we want to grow. In fact, they affirmed their commitment to grow with a still memorable response of, and I quote, we don't know anything about raising money or setting up an internal structure. You don't know anything about running our nonprofit. So we'll run our street ministry and you raise the money for it, end quote. That's a match made in heaven. That's what they said, and that's what we both did. So much so that in 4 short years, their annual revenues rose by double digits. And during that time, they also raised enough money in a capital campaign to move out of their old, decaying building in a brand new $32 million facility. All because they followed good advice. They used our proven and effective system of funding. Well, what about the second group? I'm glad you asked, because that's a different story. Why? Well, glad you asked, because that's a different story. Why? Because when we had the same type of strategic meeting with complete situational analysis and SWOT overview that laid out a very similar plan to the first group, the response was surprising. I still remember the discussion in detail as we all sat around the conference table. Sitting straight across from me, and in simple words with a stern expression on his face, the CEO leaned forward in his chair and said, if that is what we have to do to grow, then we'll just stay small. Now, over a decade later, they are still small. They haven't changed. That CEO has since passed on to his glory in heaven. God bless him. But that internal culture of resistance and smallness carries on into this very day. Look, without question, it's not my position to determine if an organization should choose to grow and become larger, or to stay in the same place and remain small. As I like to say, my name is not on the wall. Theirs is, so they get to choose. Being small or smaller in and of itself is no crime, purely an option for management or the founder to decide. And there's absolutely no shame in that either. However, what is a shame is the countless number of people in great need, some even in potential life-saving situations, who were not cared for or attended to because of this resistance. All because this wonderful organization with significant outreach into very remote parts of the world chose not to grow. My friend Randy Mayeux leads the First Friday book synopses on the first Friday of each month at the Park City Club in Dallas. It's an outstanding program with keen insights and distillations of the most popular business books today. Truly, it's a great experience. Many of us meet for breakfast and the synopses, 2 books each month. Plus, people around the world join in on Zoom. Check it out sometimes. It's a really good program. Randy is so good with his delivery that I invited him to the UT Dallas marketing class I teach as an adjunct. I asked Randy to deliver his recent review of the small but significant book entitled The War of Art. Normally it takes Randy about 15 minutes to present a synopsis, but he presents for over an hour when a group of 60 like in my class. For brevity, here is the essence of the book in a paragraph, plus how it applies to nonprofit founders, CEOs, and chief development officers. Resistance. Actually, that is the book in one word, not a paragraph. Resistance. It is something we all, me for sure, encounter in one fashion or another at one time or another. Resistance to change, resistance to discomfort, resistance to uncertainty, much less resistance to uncertainty about uncertainty. And maybe most of all, resistance to the thinking that a way other than my way might just be a better way. Frank Sinatra got to do it his way, but we, unlike the chairman of the board, sometimes may need to alter, amend, or adjust my way to a better way for all, and a better way for those people we don't know or will ever know who benefited from our mission statement work. Gad Syed said, "There is no end to which people will go to maintain their coherence of their current belief system." I have a favorite expression I use in teaching my university students, and this is what I say. Quote, "I'm always the smartest person in the room until I'm not." None of us are. Clearly, the more I know, the less I understand. Not because I understand less, but because I know more and there is more to less understand. Times are rapidly changing. Being locked in may sadly lead to being locked out. Moore's Law says microchips on transistors double approximately every 2 years. However, microchip production will triple in the next 4 years. AI is doubling every few months. By the time you see this, it is likely going to be even shorter. The convergence of knowledge and new opportunities is moving like a mighty current in a river of opportunity. It's fundamentally the difference between perception and reality. We may perceive our small way is the right way, but in reality, it may not be. Back to that fateful meeting of staying small. No one there was asked to do anything they didn't want to do. It's always a choice. There was no request to run guns across the border or defy either personal or corporate values. Everything was fully legal, moral, and ethical. The reflective request was to look at self-limiting perceptions and to open oneself up to the possibility that their very same message and very same foundation of action could remain unchanged, just with a little different positioning, presentation, and presence. With such, the performance of the organization could be much larger, more efficient, and with many more people being cared for who wouldn't be otherwise. Could this be where more resistance causes less assistance? So what was the surprising question I heard at the Dallas event? It simply was this: How do I stay true to myself and my values and still grow to help more people? Perry Marshall has an expression. I have cautioned him that I have adopted and used it so much that he may soon lose authorship of it. Well, sort of, Perry. Perry encourages us to, quote, always be willing to seek the truth that we don't want to find, end quote. With that in mind, we each have the choice to do as Mr. Syed warns and stay locked inside our own perception of the world, a perception as to what is right and what we think is wrong. Or we can ask ourselves, what is the question I'm not asking that I should be asking? And maybe in a more simple life, quote, why can't I just stay as the smartest person in the room and not have to deal with the consideration that I just might not be, end quote. In closing, may you take comfort and confidence in knowing that all roads still lead to the same castle, but not all journeys you take are the same. Until the next issue of Castle Roads, travel well. E. Paul.